But at the same time, I actually do at this point wish that I had called him or other people involved. I guess I just had the idea that they didn't really. I guess when I saw what went down with Leah and how she literally wouldn't listen to anything, and then also just how uninvolved anybody was with my story or uninterested in boosting it, I just was like, yeah, they just don't care. But I do actually wish that I had made more of an effort. At the time, somebody who was my best friend was very, very actively trashing those people and convincing me that they were like the devil. And I believed her very much. And then last minute
Can
she
we talk
switched
about that?
sides.
Do you mind, or would you rather
Yeah,
not
yeah,
right now?
we can talk about that. Yeah.
Can we talk about her? Because I really want to.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, Valeska Paris is one of the unsung villains in the fallout between the people known as the Aftermath Foundation crowd and the people known as the SPTV crowd. When Jenna and I got in touch with each other, when we reconnected after all these years, it was Valeska Paris who basically put us in touch with each other. It was Valeska Paris who was your best friend. And it was Valeska Paris who was in both of our ears telling us how evil and horrible and terrible and manipulative Mark, Claire, and Leah and Mike were. Like, she was the one stirring up both sides. And she is the
Right.
one who caused Leah Remini to like officially disconnect from you and I. That is a fact. And one of these days we will show all of the receipts.
Right. Yeah, exactly. When I first got divorced, I was like sort of losing my husband's big family, which was a lot of who I spent the last several years with. And I had gotten a call from a reporter asking about Valeska's lawsuit. And I didn't even realize she had one because I didn't watch SPTV. I didn't know anything about it. And I then reached out to Valeska and I was like, hey, if you need help with anything, if you need someone to testify or whatever, I didn't realize you were doing this. I knew Valeska from when I was 9 years old, and she was the person who did my mom's laundry. And so I would spend hours with her, and we were really good friends, but we had only touched base once after she left Scientology. One of those times was for her to tell me that Leah Remini basically had told a bunch of people that her story was so terribly unimportant and that Leah didn't care about children, and that sort of turned me against Leah. But then later she retracted it, and I didn't really know what was true and what wasn't. And so when I got in touch with her, we wound up like I was going through something hard and she was going through her own crisis. She was married in Scientology, and even though she was married, she was like anyways.
It's because she was
And
having her own relationship struggles, similar to the ones people have tried to shame us for.
right, exactly. Yes. Except
Much more
blatant.
egregious.
Yes,
Much
much
more
more blatant.
egregious. She was
Yeah,
for the streets.
yeah. So, and so she was like my best friend. I would talk to her every single day. And, even like the few times Claire would reach out to me to like be on her show, she'd be like, Claire's not your friend. She's just trying to use you. She doesn't like you at all. And then Claire, even if Claire was like, yeah, because I was really concerned about working and supporting myself when I first got divorced, Claire reached out to be like, would you like to talk to our job consultant? And Valeska was like, she's just trying to pretend like no real friend would do that. She would call you and speak to you if she really cared about you. And it was just like, that's sort of how it was with everything. And yeah, it just was so bizarre when everything went down with Aaron. She was like 100%, on his side. And I forget where I was going with this, but then just last minute, this switcheroo, and was talking to both sides, but talking
Well, and
shit about
even
both
well, and
sides.
even on my end, she was the one saying, you should resign from the Aftermath Foundation. They're just using you, and they're using you for clout, and you don't need them, and they're the ones that need you, and they're being terrible to you. And you would feel so much freer if you separated yourself from them. And also other weird stuff. Like the first time she ever called me after years of having not spoken. She was like, "Oh yeah, just so you know, I finally just disconnected from, you know, my sister Melissa, and she really is just a sociopath, and I realized she was pulling me down." And I remember thinking to myself, why does it seem like you think you have to shit on your sister to get into my good graces? Like, I don't like what's it? I feel
Right.
like this is a manipulation tactic of like, oh yes, I'm sorry, I was so horrible to you before. I realized it was all because of Melissa and she's terrible, and I've severed all ties with her. And I remember feeling a little bad, being like, you don't have to shit on your sister to get my affection. Like
Mhm.
it's almost like I wasn't asking for that, but she was offering it up, like almost like, you know, I'm going to sacrifice, I'm going to throw my sister under the bus so that you'll like me again. And then she's shitting on all of the Aftermath people. And then and then we find out that when she came to the US to visit you, she's like secretly talking and visiting with Mark and Claire as well, telling them how terrible we are and how we're the reason she's negative about them, and then telling us how terrible they are and that they're the reason she was so negative about us. And then she goes to visit Leah's house and starts telling Leah how terrible we are and we're the reason Valeska was negative about Leah. Valeska is like the hidden, unrevealed villain of so much of the fucking drama that's happened over the last 2 years.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane. And it
And
honestly
then,
took
and I'm sorry to even go on about this, but so she goes to Leah's house and she talks shit about us to Leah. So Leah's pissed at us. And then she comes back to your house and start immediately talking shit about Leah to you. And then she goes back to Leah and tells her we're talking shit about her again. And it's like all of this at any point in time, at any point in any of this, if Leah, Mike, Mark, or Claire had called either you or I ever and said, "Hey, can we talk?" The answer would have been yes, of course, absolutely. Like we were not
right.
so negative on any of them that we would have shut down communication. And
Right.
I'm not even implying it's their fault for not reaching out to us. I'm pointing out we were not so negative on them that we would have shut down communication. But Valeska
Right.
was stirring up all of the bullshit and negativity and lies between all three camps. I consider Leah to be her own camp. I consider the Aftermath Foundation folks to be their camp. And then I consider what is now, you know, SPTV to be our camp. It was literally Valeska running around talking mad shit about everybody to everybody.
Yeah, and I remember on top of that, there was this show that we were participating in, and she was like, "I will not I will not be in it if Mark and Claire are in it. I will not be in it. I will not be in it if the Jane Does are in it." She was
Who was she saying
literally
that to?
she was saying it to Brian Seymour.
The executive producers and Brian Seymour. So
Yeah,
Valeska was there talking shit to Brian Seymour and his crew about Mark, Claire, and the Masterson victims.
right. Yeah, saying she would
And then
not be in it.
Valeska,
Yeah.
I'm so if you feel like I'm cutting you off, please tell me to shut up and I'll let
Oh,
you. I'm
it's
so
fine, yeah.
excited. I'm so like ramped up right now. Um, let me tell the ridiculous story. At this time when Valeska told me about Brian Seymour's Netflix television show about Scientology,
Oh,
I
yeah.
had not yet heard about it.
Right.
But everyone else on the Aftermath Foundation board had already, without my knowledge, traveled to LA and filmed for this show. And Valeska had told me about it. And she goes, I think it's so disgusting that none of them told you about this show. They're so bad. They're so evil. They're so disgusting. And she's like, you know what? I can get you on the show. She's like, would you like that? I'm like, I mean, of course I would like it. And she goes, okay, I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to get you on the show. I was like, that'd be sweet. So she comes back. I've got great news. They're so excited to have you on the show. They wanted to have you on the show the whole time. Actually, she goes, the executive producer wanted to have you on the show the whole time, but Brian Seymour didn't want you on the show because he said that you once made a negative comment about journalists, and Brian's the reason you weren't on the show. But I went over his head and I spoke to the executive producer and they're dying to have you on the show. I go, oh, okay. What did you tell them? She goes, I told them that you found out about the show and were threatening to expose the entire thing if they didn't include you. And I go, why the fuck would you say that, you lunatic? And she goes, no, it's okay. It's okay. They're going to have you on the show. So like, this is.
I remember
like,
when she said that, and I was like, "What?" And she was like furious that I was furious. And she's like, "Well, you wanted to be on the show." I was like, "Jesus
I was
Christ."
like, so you told them that I was basically blackmailing my way into the show. And And so then, you know what? So then I get on a call with Brian Seymour. I wish I could remember the name of his executive producer. Do you remember
Brendan.
his name? Brendan, yet another married man who Valeska was trying to sleep with. So, or at least, you know, they had a kid together. Maybe they weren't married. And I get on a call with Brendan and Brian, and they could not be more excited to talk to me. But now I realize they thought I was holding them hostage. So they basically kissed my ass, told me how they wanted to have me be the final episode of the show. And it was like the biggest thing that was ever happening in ex-Scientology was SPTV. And I was like, hey, this is really cool. I'm glad you guys are excited about this. And then they have me sign a non-disclosure agreement, and then they ghost me forever and never film with me. Valeska got these guys to catch and kill me. And now I don't know if the show's ever coming out.
I don't know.
Probably not, because this was like 2 fucking years ago.
Yeah.
You know? And so one day, I mean, look, we're briefly telling a story in 15 minutes about an hour into a YouTube video. So, you know, only a fraction of people will ever hear this story. But one day this story will get featured in the way that it deserves to be. But it really is unfortunate because, you know, the fact is, Valeska Paris, I'm going to say this emphatically. Valeska Paris is the reason Leah Remini blocked me and you everywhere. Valeska Paris is the reason.
Yeah. Right.
You know exactly. That, I know that, and Leah knows that. And when Leah wakes up and realizes that she's been being fucking manipulated and lied to, and she's not blameless in it. She's not blameless, but when she realizes the role that Valeska Paris played in the destruction of all these relationships, if Leah ever reaches out and says, can we talk? The answer will be, of course we can talk.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
You know?
Yeah.
And there's even more to this story, but
yeah, but I just thought, you know, an interesting sort of through line is that, like, you know, the amount of things that I did throughout my life, like even just like getting married in order to have someone in my life, and then getting divorced, and then someone comes in who I knew when I was a kid, and just like latching onto her as a friend, because it's like, once again, I felt like I was losing so many people, and how that sort of wound up becoming a bit of a toxic nightmare.
Yeah.
And I just think it's an example of, too, like, you know, these things that happen in Scientology, they affect you for your whole life. Now, I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, poor me, I'm going to never be whole or whatever. No, there's plenty of great things in my life, but it is a pattern that's happened, that's been traumatizing, that doesn't just go away when you leave Scientology. And I'm sure many people who have had a difficult childhood, or, you know, trauma in their life, they can relate to that. So it's just like something that you're always working through and learning more and more about, and sort of recognizing long after it happens.